Well, our next speaker for this morning is Kelly Turner. Kelly Turner is the Deputy Legal Counsel of the Illinois Power Agency, IPA, an independent state agency tasked with developing procurement plans and conducting energy capacity and renewable procurement events and developing solar energy incentive programs. Kelly joined the agency in 2020. In this role, she provides legal assistance and support in the development and preparation of procurement plans, including the agency's annual electricity procurement plan, biennial revisions to the agency's long-term renewable resources procurement plan, and any future planning processes. In addition, she works closely with the IPA Chief Legal Counsel in litigation before the Illinois Commerce Commission, including litigation seeking approval of the IPA's procurement plans and docketed proceedings implicating agency interests or jurisdictions, among other responsibilities. Prior to joining IPA, Kelly worked as the senior attorney for the Citizens Utility Board and as a trial attorney in the Office of General Counsel at the Illinois Commerce Commission. Over the course of her career, she has developed an expertise in energy and renewable procurements, utility rate making, energy efficiency and demand response programs, administrative rulemakings, and consumer protection, energy supply, and solar marketing. Kelly has served as the chair of the Chicago Bar Association's Energy, Telecommunications, and Water Subcommittee. She holds dual bachelor's degrees from Miami University and Juris Doctor degree from Chicago Kent College of Law. Outside her professional life, she enjoys spending time in the outdoors with her family and competing in triathlons. Let's welcome Kelly to the stage. Thanks, Candace. Thanks, Brad. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry that bio was so long. I think it's actually also out of date, but nonetheless, I'm still competing in triathlons. I'm here today to talk about renewable energy incentive programs in Illinois. So you heard the team from IUC talking about some of the incentives that are available from the federal government. I'm not going to focus on those today, but please kind of keep in mind that there are federal incentives available as well, specifically, and I think kind of most widely available is the investment tax credit for the development of systems. But just want to make sure that that those don't get overlooked in this conversation. We're going to start just really quickly. The Illinois Power Agency, Mark talked about what we do a little bit in his presentation as well. He was the first director of the IPA. We are responsible for the implementation of the state's renewable portfolio standard. This is how we are achieving the state's goal of bringing more renewables online, 50% by 2040. We manage incentive programs for rooftop solar, for community solar. We conduct competitive procurements for RECs, and we also procure RECs from former coal plant sites that are coupled with storage. We also administer other programs as well to incentivize carbon-free energy, specifically programs that support at-risk nuclear plants. So what is a REC? We've heard some people talk about this today. I know there's consumers in the room who may not be familiar with this term. A renewable energy credit, a REC, sometimes specifically called SRECs if they are RECs from solar, that represents the environmental attributes of 1 megawatt of electricity generated from a renewable generator. So when we are talking about how the IPA incentivizes solar in the state, it is through purchasing the RECs that are generated by a new solar installation. As I think Samira mentioned, we have 15-year or 20-year contracts to purchase the RECs from a newly installed system, and then those RECs are purchased by electric utilities in Illinois, ComEd, Ameren, and Mid-American, and they are retired towards the state's RPS. And that is how the state is able to say that we have achieved our savings goals in bringing more new renewables online in Illinois. So we have a number of programs that provide financial incentives for the installation of renewables. Today I'm primarily going to talk about these top two. Illinois Shines is our market-based program that supports solar projects on homes, businesses. It supports community solar projects as well. Illinois Solar for All is another program that supports income-eligible projects for projects on nonprofits, public facilities, and environmental justice communities. We also conduct competitive procurements for utility-scale wind and solar and for brownfield site development. Utility-scale projects are over 5 megawatts. Brownfield site projects can be smaller than 5 megawatts, but these projects are all bid in through a competitive process, and we select which projects we will support based on price. And then finally, we do administer a self-direct program. Large industrial customers often want to have the ability to retire the RECs themselves. On the previous slide, I didn't mention it, but who retires the REC gives that entity the right to say, I use this renewable energy, right? And so when if a factory, for example, installed a large distributed generation system on the roof, and the RECs were purchased by the utility for retirement against the state's RPS, that facility would not be permitted to tell their shareholders, their customers, others that they use renewable energy at their factory. So for various reasons, some customers prefer to retire the RECs on their own. Large industrial customers who are using over 10 megawatts a year can privately retire their RECs through long-term contracts, and they can receive a credit on their electricity bill for those RECs. So for the people in the room, how can you participate in the programs that are administered by the Illinois Power Agency? As a public institution, you could install on-site solar, a distributed generation system behind the meter on a public building or at a public site. You could host or subscribe to a community solar project. And you can also promote opportunities for developing solar to your constituents. As a business, you have the same opportunities as well. You can install on-site solar, you can host a project, you can subscribe to community solar. You can also do business in the solar market through our programs as an approved vendor. Approved vendors under the law and our programs and how they're structured are the entity that submits project applications into the Illinois Shines and Illinois Solar for All programs. You can work as a designee, which maybe means that you're not the entity that's applying for incentives, but you're working as a subcontractor of an approved vendor in a customer-facing role, either through subscriber acquisition, sales, lead generation, those types of things, or a purely subcontractor that doesn't have a customer-facing role. Perhaps your firm is interested in installing community solar projects. Those don't necessarily have customer-facing roles. I want to get into the Illinois Shines category specifically. This is our largest program. As the IAC team mentioned, CEJA expanded the Illinois Shines project categories. Originally under FEJA, we had a category for small distributed generation systems, large distributed generation systems, so those systems that are behind the meter that serve to offset the load at the location that they are installed. And then we also had community solar projects, which are located off-site, and subscribers can receive credits on their utility bill for the share of the generation that they subscribe for. Under CEJA, we now have an additional categories as well. We have a community-driven community solar category, which is designed to provide direct, tangible benefits to the community where the system is located. So we saw under FEJA a lot of community solar projects being sited away from load in green space. It's a great way to bring community solar online and make it available to a lot of people at an affordable price. But the community-driven community solar category is really looking at communities that want to develop a system in their area and have really local subscribers participating and supporting the project. We also have a public schools category that provides additional incentives to the development of systems that are located on or at schools. These projects can be community solar projects where the school serves as an anchor tenant, or they can be directly on site at a school, offsetting that school or district building's load on site. And then we also have our equity eligible contractor category. This category is designed under the statute to grow from the 10% that it originally was in 2021 to 40% over time. And these are projects that are developed by approved vendors who are equity eligible persons. It includes distributed generation projects and also community solar projects. So who is eligible to participate in Illinois Shines as a customer? All Illinois residents can participate. Commercial and industrial customers are also eligible to participate. Public schools. All of these customers can participate by installing a distributed generation system at their facility, behind the meter systems that offset the load on site, or you can subscribe to a community solar project. Typically, most of the offers that we see in Illinois are set up as your subscription cost is a portion of your net metering credits that you receive from your utility. So customers not only have a subscription for community solar and are helping to support the development of community solar projects, but they also see a reduction on their utility bill. Public schools, again, can participate in the same way. They are eligible to participate specifically in the public schools category, but they can also participate in other ways as well, either specifically through the public schools category or through the large DG, small DG category, or being an anchor tenant in the community solar, in a community solar project. 2024 long-term renewables procurement plan that was approved by the Illinois Commerce Commission earlier this year. We are able to facilitate in the 24-25 program year, which runs June 1st of this year through May 31st of next year, 142 megawatts of small DG, so systems under 25 kilowatts, 142 megawatts of large DG, somewhere in the range of 200 some megawatts of traditional community solar, about 36 megawatts of community-driven community solar, 107 megawatts of projects at public schools, and around 150 megawatts of solar developed by equity-eligible contractors. Now you'll see that these are higher percentages than what's on the previous slide. We're working towards expanding the equity-eligible contractor category. We've had a lot of interest in that category, and these are the capacity that was approved for this year. We do roll over unused capacity in categories and reallocate it to other categories. So what is actually available for this program year is a little bit different now because we did have some unused capacity in the last program year that we have reallocated to different categories in this program year. I put up here the REC prices for DG projects, community-driven community solar projects traditional community solar projects, and the public schools category. Just so that if there's any contractors in the room who are interested in getting into this work, you can kind of see what the incentives look like for this year in those different categories. You'll notice that there are only 4 categories of prices here, but there are 6 categories. That's because we have all of the DG prices listed here in the one table, regardless of category. It's determined by size. And then the equity eligible contractor category does not feature different rec prices. The prices in that category are determined by the type of project. So a traditional community solar project that is submitted in the EDC category would get the traditional community solar price based on the size of the system, and whether it's located in Group A, which is generally the Ameren and American Service Territory, or Group B, which is the Commonwealth Edison Service Territory. Public schools have a different price than the DG or traditional community solar categories. They also feature a longer REC contract. They are obligated to deliver RECs for 20 years instead of 15 years. I'm going to talk about Solar for All briefly. We have 4 main sub-programs within Illinois Solar for All: a residential small solar program, a residential large solar program. These provide incentives to projects that are located at residential homes, depending on whether or not they're multifamily, 5 or more, or 1 to 4 family residences. They feature no upfront cost to customers and guaranteed savings for low-income households, and there is an income eligibility factor for participation in the residential DG sub-programs of Solar for All. Nonprofits and public facilities also can install solar with no or low upfront costs. This is a very popular sub-program. And the benefits are going directly to the host of the system, and then also the community around where this is sited. And then community solar projects for income eligible customers are also run through the Solar for All program. It provides income eligible households that do not have the ability to install solar to still participate and receive some of the benefits of participating in the green energy economy. As I mentioned, we have eligibility requirements for residential and community solar that's set at 80% of AMI. Nonprofits and public facilities, in order to be eligible, have to be critical service providers serving environmental justice communities or income eligible communities. The programs feature job training requirements at a project level and the portfolio level. So approved vendors who are participating in Solar for All have to recruit job trainees from the FLEJA and CEJA job training programs. And importantly, the customers must receive at least 50% of the value of the energy savings from the system. So significant savings that we see here. This is, I think, probably one of the highest savings requirements that you'll see in an income eligible program nationwide, even with federal government programs, when they are talking about serving low-income customers to receive federal incentives. I think the rate of savings that income-eligible customers must receive is only 20%. So bringing a lot of savings to income-eligible customers. So again, the customer participation in Solar for All is going to be different from Illinois Shines because this is focused on income-eligible households, environmental justice communities, and income-eligible communities. But the participation methods for customers and communities is the same. Once a resident is can confirm their income eligibility, which happens with the program administrator or with the approved vendor, they can search out for community solar opportunities or residential opportunities as well. The benefits of participation. Saving money on your electric bill, obviously, is a key factor here. One, if you're installing a distributed generation system at your home, you're reducing your energy usage right? You or at your business. And so you're going to see lower energy bills because of that. But you're also still going to save money on your bill if you have a community solar subscription. Because the community solar subscription rate is often structured, subscription rate, the charge for the subscription itself, is often structured as a portion of the credit that you receive from your utility. We have built-in consumer protections into both of our programs. We require approved vendors to provide customers with standardized disclosures explaining what their installation contract looks like or what their community solar subscription agreement looks like, what it means. There's the ability to cancel without penalty in various categories and subprograms. The program set out the requirements for what terms and conditions must be included in a customer's installation contract. And we have dedicated program administrator staff for both the program administrator for Illinois Shines and the program administrator for Illinois Solar for All to answer customer questions and help them navigate issues that come up with their installers or confusion that they might have about their contracts. I briefly also want to touch on for the contractors in the room how you can become an approved vendor in Illinois Shines and in Illinois Solar for All. There is a project application online for Illinois Shines. If you would like to be an approved vendor in Illinois Solar for All, you also have to be an approved vendor in Illinois Shines. Approved vendors are the entities who are executing the rent contract. Those are the entities that are receiving the payments for RECs from utilities. Often approved vendors on distributed generation projects will pass through some of these incentives to customers under the Illinois Shines program. Sometimes approved vendors will offer a reduction in the cost for the installation of a system to customers up front, and then they will keep the incentives on the back end. However a business wants to structure their model, we don't require them at this time to do it in any certain particular way, as long as they disclose to the customer up front what the amount of the incentives will be and how those incentives will be treated. We also require that subcontractors who interface directly with customers through sales and marketing, installations, subscriber acquisition, those subcontractors must also register with our program as well. This helps us keep track of who is working in the market on our programs and keep track of the customer interactions. If customers have complaints, concerns, questions, if they feel that they've been misled in, or if they have other issues with their installations, they can come to us and to the program administrator, and we can help facilitate working out those problems. I mentioned earlier we have a specific category for equity eligible contractors participating in the Illinois Shines program. An AV that is majority owned by an equity eligible person qualifies as an equity eligible contractor. The IPA Act tells us who equity eligible persons are. They are formerly incarcerated individuals, graduates of the foster care system, a participant or a graduate of certain FEJA and all CEJA job training programs, or they are a resident of an equity investment eligible community. Those are the communities that the IEC was talking about. They include environmental justice communities, the R3 restoration communities, and 70% of the population of the state of Illinois lives within an EIEC. So very kind of, I think, noteworthy there that these are in large population centers within our state, right? There are EIECs around the Rockford area. Approved vendors can also be single project approved vendors. We see this a lot with community solar projects. And also entities that are certified as MWBs, minority or women-owned business enterprises, also receive additional scoring and considerations in Solar for All when it comes to project selection. On the IPA's website, we have a small emerging business guide that includes a lot of handy information about how to become certified as an approved vendor or as a designee in one of our programs. It provides an introductory overview of both programs and what participation in those programs looks like for businesses, instructions on how to register, and contact information for the program administrators. So if you're looking at all of this and saying, this is really complicated, how do we do this? I think someone mentioned earlier, the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act is over 900 pages long. There is a lot of really specific information there about how we incentivize solar, and it can be tricky to navigate and get started. And so that's why we have the Small and Emerging Business Guide online on our website for entities who are looking to participate in the clean energy economy and expand their businesses into solar. I want to run through really quickly labor requirements. I know that we have some labor constituencies in the room. One of the things that is important to note is that prevailing wage requirements apply to almost all projects that are participating in our incentive programs. Utility scale wind and solar, brownfield sites, all projects receiving incentives through Illinois Shines and Illinois Solar for All, with the exception of residential projects and projects cited in the House of Worship that are smaller than 100 kilowatts, or large DG legacy projects from before CEJA are exempted. Otherwise, all projects must pay prevailing wage in order to receive incentives through our programs. We do confirm that developers have complied with these by requiring submission of the certified transcripts of payroll that you are likewise required to submit to IDLE. Project labor agreements are also required on utility scale project development and self-direct programs, or projects that are participating in the self-direct program. And I want to talk quickly about equity provisions and equity goals as well. You have heard me talk already about the equity eligible contractor category and about how that is supposed to grow. As part of the CEJA legislation, we have an equity accountability system that we have had to implement at the IPA and develop. We have a minimum equity standard for the Illinois Shines program. Every project, and also for our utility scale projects as well, every project that receives a REC contract after CEJA has to have 10% of their workforce be made up of equity eligible persons. So that list that I talked about before, if you're an equity eligible person and you own a business, you can become an equity eligible contractor, but you also need to seek out employees and when looking for new staff, look towards the job training programs, look towards recruiting in EIEC communities. And then, as I mentioned, we are increasing as well the size of the equity eligible contractor category. We have developed an energy workforce equity portal that is available online. That portal is available for workers, job training graduates, just regular everyday people who live in EIECs. They can certify themselves as an EEP through that portal. It helps their employer with reporting on how they are doing in meeting the MES. It also helps with recruitment efforts. Approved vendors and designees can register on the portal. They can post jobs there. So the Energy Workforce Equity Portal connects people and contractors together to help meet the equity goals of CEJA. That is all I have. Thank you all for your attention. I know that was a lot of information and I ran through it pretty quickly.